Can you guys tell me when you see something?
Yes.
Okay, folks, I think hopefully we're back. This is Joshua Fried and Matt Larkin. Sorry about that glitch. Just technology, I have a feeling that Zoom and Facebook are well overwhelmed. So hopefully everybody who jumped off can now jump on. Matt, I'm not seeing anybody yet, but we did have quite the crowd that was gathering.
So maybe they'll come back.
Broke our system, but we'll wait. Looks like a couple more people are jumping on, but yeah, it was starting to be a good amount of people. I don't know if that had an issue with why we got kicked off, but all right. Cool. I think we're getting there. We're getting people back on board. So I like seeing that. So Matt, where were we? We were talking about bakeries, talking about your business, Romac Industries in the city of Bothell, employing 500 to 600 people, which is just phenomenal, and really providing a lot of jobs during this period of time. And unlike you, my business is considered non-essential. I believe you're essential.
We made the essential cut. I don't know
what did that feel like
or how, but we did. So that's great, not from a selfish perspective, but from the fact that we can keep all of those folks employed with all of their benefits and all of the salaries they need to pay their bills. So we're excited about that.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Yeah, it's been definitely a challenging time. I bet a bunch of people have been reaching out to you and talking about a few different things going on and stresses and anxieties they're feeling.
Oh yeah, for sure. And hopefully we can put some of their minds at ease when we talk about how we'll be in charge in about a year and a half.
Yeah. Well, so a few people sent some questions in. We captured them when we had about 50 or so people on just before the last live crashed about 5 minutes ago. But let me ask you a couple, because these are not for me. These are for you.
Okay.
I have one here. Attorney General Bob Ferguson sent out a fundraising email off a dangerous President Donald Trump coronavirus conspiracy. I don't know if you saw it, but what do you think of that, and how can we prevent folks from being scammed?
I did. All of his emails go to my junk mail folder, but I do check them. And I think the one that's referring to is the conspiracy that Donald Trump created the virus in some effort to do a power grab and not step down from the office of president come January, which is, I mean, it's laughable to you and I talking about it. But the fact that Ferguson is playing on those fears, there's real ultra-left liberals who that's their real fear. And he's playing that up big time. And that's kind of been the unfortunate theme with Bob Ferguson. He likes to fundraise off of his anti-Trump conspiracies and off of his anti-Trump lawsuits. And it's, you know, it's successful for him. He's raised over $2 million.
He actually sent out an email with the conspiracy that Donald Trump created this?
Yeah.
No.
I don't think it said created. It said that he was somehow behind it or facilitating. I don't know. I'd have to pull the email itself up, but that was the gist of it, that it's a power grab on Donald's part.
Oh, I didn't know he was a member of the, you know, vast left-wing conspiracy crowd that thinks that things are happening behind the scenes with greater powers behind the president.
Well, if it raises a buck, I guess he'll say anything.
Fortunate. Well, he's said a lot of different things. I mean, definitely with thinking about the 54 different lawsuits, or is it 58 now against Trump?
Now. 58? Yeah, 58. That's roughly 19 a year over the last 3 years of President Trump's term. Since when did that become okay to spend our tax dollars that way?
Yeah, that's not okay. You know, a lot of people have talked to me. I just had a virtual town hall with Island County. Was it last night or the night before? And they're really concerned because Bob Ferguson, with the support of Jay Inslee, have moved in with a lawsuit against NAS Whidbey, so Naval Station Whidbey. Yeah. And it's all about the Growler flights. And those flights have been going on forever up there. And 90% of Island County is dependent on the military. And so Bob Ferguson listens to a minority and tries to bring suit to threaten our own national security. Imagine if people have talked to you about that.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, Ferguson does have a huge chunk of his base who is anti-military. And that just plays right to their drumbeat that, hey, he can pat himself on the back and say, hey, I'm suing the Navy, everyone, look. But it's sad. He also sued Bremerton recently over the shipyard. it's craziness that he's using the office for some of these political battles and to fundraise off of.
Yeah,
Which
I'm
never
wondering what's next. Is
used.
Bremerton next? Is oh boy, I don't know, Bangor, Fairchild, JBLM.
Yeah, who knows? But it's crazy, and we've never seen an AG use the office like this. It's a little bit disturbing because he's
Yeah,
picking
it's
and
really
choosing
disturbing.
battles, and he's kind of like,
Well, now that we're getting back up to steam, we had our first live for I think 5 minutes, and now we're on our second live feed, and hopefully our technology with the combination of Zoom and Facebook Live is going to stick with us. But I do want to invite everyone, or not invite, I want to welcome everyone to a conversation between Matt Larkin. He's running for Attorney General against Bob Ferguson. He's a great man. Really enjoy getting to know him. Really appreciate his heart of service to really make sure that we have an attorney general that's defending the citizens of the state of Washington with the laws of the state of Washington, rather than being motivated by his own political aspirations for higher office. Bob Ferguson needs to move on, and Mr. Larkin needs to move into place. But I'm Joshua Freed, running for governor against Jay Inslee, and we're finding a lot of common ground in this conversation so far. So hopefully the folks that are jumping online with us on Facebook Live are enjoying the conversation as well. But let me ask, I have a second question that came in for you, and then I think there's one that maybe a couple of us can do as well. So this is for you, Matt. People like habitual criminal Francisco Calderon are
yeah.
being released from prison because of COVID. When are we getting back our gun? Wait, when are we getting our gun rights back? I don't know how those two, maybe there's two different questions there. So people like habitual criminal Francisco Calderon are being released from prison because of COVID. So the concern is here's these criminals being let go. And then at the same time, I think cities like Bellingham and Edmonds are trying to take our constitutional rights away with the First and Second Amendment.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's maybe take the first one first. It's part of what I'm running on is a law and order campaign. We need to support our law enforcement, but we need to enforce the law, period. We need to get these guys off the streets, these habitual offenders. You saw that with the shooters in downtown Seattle. These guys commit crimes over and over and over again, and they just go in the courthouse and out of the courthouse. They just get cycled through and released right back into society. And that's part of that kind of liberal worldview that says our prisons are too crowded and we need criminal justice reform and all of these things. Well, okay, but we need to look out for the rights of Washingtonians, the innocent victims in these crimes, first and foremost. One of those victims of the shooting that happened downtown was a 9-year-old boy. And my son, he's the same age as my son. And I mean, that hits home, you know, these are innocent people just wanting to go downtown and they're caught in the crossfire and it's not right. And we need to be a little bit tougher on the laws, period. And we haven't heard a peep from the attorney general about any of this. He's too focused on what we talked about a second ago, suing the Navy and suing the Air Force. And
yeah, well, I remember with that incident specifically, those two guys that were down there doing the shooting eventually got arrested in Las Vegas. But between them, they had 70 arrests. And of course, the default response we heard from Jenny Durkin is, well, this isn't as bad as other cities. Well, it's pretty bad when 5, 6 people are getting shot at McDonald's. A 9-year-old kid who's thinking he's getting a Big Mac gets a bullet in the leg instead.
I
We
mean,
need to start enforcing our laws in this state for sure. Sorry.
Right. But the classic response that you hear from the leaders at the state level and at the city level is, oh, it's a gun control problem. And no.
That's where they went. It go after the law-abiding citizens who enjoy the Second Amendment rights. The thought was from the legislature and from Durkin, and even I think Bob Ferguson jumped in on it and said, well, we need to start having stricter gun laws. Well, those two guys don't care about laws, obviously, and they're the ones doing the shooting with 70 different arrests between them.
If only there had been a stricter gun law in place, they wouldn't have carried it down there and fired at each other. No,
it's not good. Not good. So a few of you folks jumping online, you're on with Joshua Freed and Matt Larkin. Thank you so much for joining us. Give a couple thumbs up to Matt. I think he's a great guy. You guys are going to enjoy continuing to get to know him. So John Vale wants to know if you will repeal 1639.
Why repeal 1639?
Yeah.
It's not, I unfortunately wish I could. It's not the AG's responsibility to repeal it. It doesn't even fall under my abilities to do so. I will lobby hard against it. And I
Yep.
think the will of the people should flood out of their homes here when this lockdown ends and start getting petitioned to get it on the ballot.
Yeah,
Uh,
there's a lot of unconstitutional issues in 1639. I
oh,
voted against 1639. I don't
it's
know
a
if you want to
disaster.
say where you were.
Yeah, it's a disaster and it's unconstitutional. It's still being decided in the courts. But the best way to beat an initiative like that is to take it to the people who are passionate about it, like you and me and my neighbors, and get signatures, get it on the ballot.
Yeah, I think I'm encouraged. Alan Gottlieb, Second Amendment Foundation, is already moving forward with a court case. So hopefully he'll find a reasonable court. I know that Jay Inslee has appointed some 56 judges over his last tenure, and there's a lot of power that comes with appointing proper judges. And I think about President Trump, who's appointed a lot of different judges who are constitutionalists rather than activists. I know I was running Initiative 27 2 years ago, which was a ban on heroin injection sites. And I went before a judge in Seattle who was appointed by Jay Inslee, and she is a self-proclaimed activist, Judge Galvan. A serious problem. You ever want to get Todd Herman going? Just mention Judge Galvan; he'll go nuts.
That's craziness, though. And that's 56 appointees too many. And that's why we need you as governor to undo some of that damage on appointees.
Yeah,
And strict Second Amendment supporting judges in there.
totally. Well, the governor appoints some 1,500 people. So you can imagine after 35 years of one party control, how large state government has grown. And you notice that state employees are still getting their paychecks, where a lot of people who have now been fired from restaurants or retail are not getting those checks or tips anymore. A serious, serious issue. So we got a question here. As governor, what would you do to protect the homeless during the COVID crisis? So I guess this is for me.
That's for you.
Boy, there are definitely the most vulnerable among us when you think about those folks that are living in the streets, out in the elements right now. I think we have not taken proper measures prior to this issue, and really they're even more vulnerable than they are today. And yes, there's absolutely personal responsibility when it comes to many issues that allow people to go into homelessness. But there are economic issues that sometimes people encounter where there's a single mom with a few kids and she's left at that last paycheck. And I think a lot of people are facing that crisis today. And there's other issues. Obviously, mental health issues need to be addressed. We see Western State Hospital was decertified in July 2018. We see probably 80% of the homeless are struggling from drug or alcohol addiction. And so right now they're vulnerable in the streets. And for me, I don't think it's compassionate. And Matt, I know you think the same way, to just let them live under tarps underneath freeways or in parks surrounded by garbage and needles.
No, and you know what bugs me is that the left has claimed the mantle of compassion over the last 20 years. They're the compassionate party. When I could argue we're far more compassionate for wanting to help people permanently
Yeah.
get them out of these cycles of addiction and poverty. There's nothing compassionate about letting someone OD to death in an alleyway. I wouldn't want that for my sons or my daughter, and you wouldn't want that for any of your kids. That's not compassion.
No, compassion is saying, hey, what you're doing right now is, well, there's many reasons. If you're using heroin on the streets of Seattle today, you're usually going to steal around $35,000 worth of goods from people's homes or assaulting them on the street, which is why crime under Jay Inslee is up exponentially, where assaults on even first responders is up by 40%. And so people are breaking into people's homes, causing our own personal safety to be threatened. And now these folks are using heroin openly on the streets across our state, even though Jay Inslee talks about climate change, climate change, climate change, he ignores the climates of the streets across our state. I would want to enforce the laws, and I want to work with you in Olympia to make sure that if somebody is using heroin on the streets on our state, they're going to go to jail or they're going to go to a new pathways to recovery. So they're going to go through detox, they're going to go through recovery and job training, because I think true compassion is telling people that they actually have value, holding them to account, keeping them responsible, not just giving out free giveaways that just enable them to continue this lawless lifestyle of
Sure.
no responsibility.
No, you're right. I did a ride along with Seattle PD not too long ago, right before the virus outbreak. I got to spend a whole shift next to a Seattle police officer.
Hmm.
Um, and what surprised me is just how many responses he had. Half of his shift was responding to overdose victims.
Wow.
And it wasn't him responding. The fire department gets called, and I didn't realize this was the process. They show up, and then they need protection. So then the police have to come to protect the first responders.
Yeah, that's right.
All the police are there guarding the firemen while they help the OD victim.
Well, I've even heard stories from Medic One saying they'll send out two medic units. So one medic unit is administering the Narcan, while the second medic unit is protecting the first. So when the police aren't available, they're sending two medic units. Think about the waste of resources.
Think about that and think about what they're not able to do because they're doing that. And it
Yeah,
doesn't
so
have to be that way.
we see $1 billion. Sorry, I keep talking. I'm not trying to interrupt you. It cuts in and out. Go
But
ahead,
it
man.
doesn't have to be that way, right? It hasn't always been that way. And
No,
it doesn't have to stay that way. And that's why you and I are getting involved in stuff like this, because we want to change it. It
yeah,
doesn't have to be the norm.
yeah. It's personal responsibility. So let's jump to another question. Oh, so we're approaching a lot more people online here. I just want you to know during this thing, Matt, this is breaking news, but we're going to be giving away a couple gift cards. So for every 50 people who jump on at the end of our hour here, we're going to give away a couple of gift cards. So last week we found a family that we were able to give a $125 gift certificate to a local restaurant here in Bothell. So we're going to be giving a couple of those away hopefully today. But so the next thing is, encouraging folks to share their live stream with somebody who knows and cares about what we're doing here in Washington State. So if there's a few people online right now, maybe you can send a text to some friends and tell them to get on to Joshua Freed for Governor Facebook page and listen to Matt Larkin, who's running to be our next Attorney General. And I feel very good about this man to be our Attorney General. All right, so here we go. Washington is known for being one of the most innovative states in the country. Would you incorporate the private sector into your decision making? Okay, for me, I'll answer first, Matt, and then you can go. I don't know how much the private sector is involved in the Attorney General job. But I think about right now with the Department of Health, they've implemented a new program online, and it's almost been offline this whole week. And yet we have Microsoft here. We're the envy of the world with some of the most innovative minds in the world here. Why isn't the governor not inviting Microsoft down there to say, hey, let's fix this? And then I think about Amazon when it comes to logistics, making sure that we're getting those personal protective equipment out to different hospitals throughout the state. I hear from the governor, he's relying on the federal government, yet I believe there is a role of the governor to be responsible for the state. When you consider that we have a government that is based upon a republic, that means we shouldn't just be relying on the federal government for all our needs. We need to have responsibility ourselves. And yet Jay Inslee has been accused of complaining, as the governor has said, or the president has said. And so it's not time to complain. It's time to gird up, man up, and take responsibility for us during difficult times. All right. Do you want to answer that? Or I don't know if private sector is involved in much of what you do.
Enough to give a answer people want to hear. But
okay. What character qualities do you admire most in someone? Well, maybe Matt, who is somebody that you look up to?
I look up to my dad a lot. He's my role model, hands down. And what I like about him is steadiness under pressure. He's cool, calm, and collected. He's reasonable. No matter what I'm going through or what anyone in the family is going through, they can come to him and they get an answer that's from the heart, and it's not emotional, and it's amazing. So that's one thing that I look up to among other traits. I'll kick it to you for one.
Yeah, well, a lot of people really love what you just said. A lot of hearts and thumbs up. So they can see your heart, man. You communicate in such a way that people will truly see that your motivations are pure. But I think about my dad too, and my mom. I mean, both of them have been great examples to me throughout my life. My mom's been a nurse, and so that's been very comforting. She certainly has taught me to wash my hands each and every day. She's talked about you couldn't imagine, Josh, the cultures on the handles of door handles. So she's definitely kept me in line with that. But I think about my dad, who's had a dedicated heart of service his entire life. He used to work with the United States Agency for International Development. So we spent time living in Egypt and Pakistan. He's been involved in serving in Afghanistan and Indonesia and all over Africa, setting up feeding programs in Africa, setting up full train cars of maize. He set up a refugee camp with, I think, 1.5 million people in Pakistan for the folks that came out of Afghanistan. during the war with Russia. So always involved in civic involvement with him. He's gone to Kenya, drilling wells there and paving roads in different countries. He's definitely somebody who has put the uh, thought of service in my mind.
What a cool example.
Yeah, it's kind of fun. So I think our dads would be dear best friends. I have
I
that
think
feeling.
so too. Yeah.
All right, you guys, thank you so much for all the likes that you're putting up there. It's pretty awesome. My screen is just turning blue. All the things up. A lot of thumbs up. I really appreciate it. So we have a question from Gigi. Matt, you have the impressive combination of prosecutor of Pierce and Spokane counties with experience of successful businessmen. You've also led faith-based community initiatives. And I think you worked for President George Bush. Do you see any value in our state using this model for solving some of the problems plaguing our state?
Sure, great question. Part of what people don't realize, when I worked for President George W. Bush, at first in his faith-based and community initiative office, that was his very first executive order on day one when he was sworn in. He signed that office into existence. And it was because he felt that these private charities are already doing really good work. The nuns have a far higher success rate than the government in a lot of areas. And the mom and pop food kitchen serves a lot more people than the government handout stations. And they're doing really good work at the local level. And they're all in and around their communities. And 90 cents on every dollar that you gave to them goes to the cause that it's intended for, as opposed to the shockingly federal government's the inverse. So all President Bush did was say, why don't we empower these private charities with the ability to connect with federal aid? So he set up this office to do that. And there were grant writers in the office. He held annual workshops where private charities, churches, religious, non-religious, could all show up, and these government employees would help them navigate paths and fill out paperwork and navigate the federal bureaucracy on how to get charitable federal money. And it was really successful. Obama kind of gutted it and renamed it, surprisingly. But it was really, really effective. So yeah, I think at the statewide level, that'd be something certainly that a Governor Freed could consider instigating.
Yeah, like you have a lot, the exposure that you've had to, I mean, Bush and DC and some of the positive things that can be done out of there. But I think about our own Congress that was working till 2 a.m, trying to work through these recovery type packages. I've been calling on the state legislature, calling on the governor to jump in to try to give some immediate relief to taxpayers today. I've come up with what I call a Washingtonian's First plan, where I'm calling for B&O tax holiday. I'm calling for bridge grants to be given, calling on the property tax, the state portion of the property tax to be extended until October 31st. There's a lot of different things in a 5-point plan that you could do to immediately give tax relief. And yet what we're hearing from our governor right now is almost a guilty position of pushing people down. I think people are more motivated to be able to stay at a stay-at-home order rather than just saying you're going to write your kids out of the will if they are out on the sidewalk and let the governor know he's going to come find them.
That was painful.
There's some positive science and the reason to stay home. I know for me, I feel more motivated if somebody's not just trying to push me down, but say, all right, this is a reasoned approach, the reason why we're doing this, it makes a lot of sense, right? That's leadership to me. But
sure. I read your plan. I liked that a lot. A lot of good thoughts in there.
So we got a question from Fawn Spady. Please talk about Ferguson's self-serving Facebook ban. Amen. It just incumbents and candidates need to report all spending. Oh, yeah. Candidates definitely need to report spending. Can you talk about that Facebook ban?
Sure. Well, it was the equivalent of him building a gigantic treehouse and then pulling the ladder up behind him and saying no one else can come up. So what he did, he invested, I mean, right up near $20,000 building up his ads. And then he brought the state into a legal threat against Facebook and said, you've got to end political advertising, which is ridiculous. And it's part of our appeal as conservatives. We're good at grassroots organizing. We're good at online organizing. Trump ran circles around Hillary on the digital media. And we're not allowed to do it. You've run into this problem. I've run into this problem as a candidate. Our hands are tied. And Ferguson's up in the treehouse, and Inslee's up in the treehouse because he did something very similar.
Yep.
And they're not going to let us come up into the treehouse, which is it's corruption to its core. And it's not right because it limits free speech for all candidates who want to get into races like this. So it protects incumbency is what it does. And it makes it very hard for someone like me to challenge him.
I like your tree house analogy because I think about right now, Jay Inslee has deemed that single family construction is non-essential. So he
Sure.
won't even let me build a ladder to that tree house. Unbelievable. I think of the industry. So many people, whether you're a plumber, electrician, framer, cider, these people who are independent operators just wanting to provide for their family. In the construction industry, we definitely know how to work with safety. It's drilled into us constantly. You got the L&I that's watching everything that's going on. We have, every week at mine sites when we're doing construction and every home building group across the state, you have safety briefings every week. And if I have more than 2 people working in one house at one time, like the plumbers, they get angry if an electrician wants to come in because they want to be able to have their own space in the house. So there's already that physical distancing that exists.
Sure. It's ridiculous.
Trust me, I get a little bit paranoid because only 2 states out of the entire nation call construction non-essential. And yet the federal government calls it essential. Some people have reached out to me, fellow builders, and wondering if this is a personal vendetta that Inslee has against his top competitor.
Sure, unless it's a union job, of course.
True. Key Bank is moving, or Key Arena is still moving forward. But well, I'm so glad everybody's jumped on. We're still pressing forward. We got another half hour or so of just conversation with Matt Larkin, who's running for Attorney General. Please stick with us till the end. We have a gift certificate to give away. We gave one last week as $125 to, I think, Grazzi's in Bothell, to a family that was super excited to receive it. So we'll be drawing that name at the end. So I've got a question, hopefully for both. Let's see, Mary Jo Bader. Washington legislature doesn't care what we vote. If they don't like the results, they just do what they want. Boy, we've seen that so many times. I mean, $30 gas tabs, many different taxes that we voted down in the past. We voted down a income tax twice already, and yet they continue to push forward. They're trying to change the name, called the capital gains, even in this legislative session, and yet it's still an income tax and it's still against the Constitution. Mm-hmm. And it is frustrating. We've even seen some, I think, stadiums built when the citizens voted against those. Mm-hmm. Any thoughts on that?
That goes right to the point, right, Joshua, that it's one party rule, and that's what happens when you have one party rule. I mean, they've got the governor's mansion, they've got both houses of the legislature, they've got a solid Supreme Court behind them now, and they hold a lot of other statewide offices, and that's what happens. There becomes an arrogance and a groupthink that they know better than the citizens of the state of Washington, and you've seen that, and it's
ridiculous. I've seen that before. That when I was running Initiative 27, that was the ban on heroin injection sites, that they said the voters didn't have the right to vote on health-related matters, that they felt that King County Health District had the true corner on the market on the knowledge of when it comes to heroin addiction. And the guy who chairs that committee is Rod Dabowski. He's a lawyer. He's not even a medical professional. So I think there's a lot of people who can understand that injecting heroin in your veins is an extremely bad idea, and government shouldn't encourage it.
Sure. And I don't know, I can't speak for Inslee on that one, but I can speak for Ferguson's silence on that issue. He hasn't taken a position, and I'm not surprised because, again, he's going to cater to his base and not going to want to tip the scales because those liberal Seattle activists are totally for heroin injection sites. Yeah. And if Bob came out against it, he's a smart enough guy to know that it's a terrible idea, but he just won't speak out on it. So once I get out of the primaries and I can take the fight straight to Bob, that's an issue we're going to corner him on and have a lot of fun with.
Yeah, well, I'm excited for that. I think about the U.S. Attorney General, thankfully jumped in during that process and said, yeah, we're going to come in. If Washington State wants to break the law and have the most irresponsible idea to address the drug crisis in America to open heroin injection sites, we're going to shut you down. So Tom Mayer has a question. I know we want everyone to be healthy and safe, but what do you think of the petition that's going around to get the X to be governor to allow construction to restart, providing we do it in a reasonable manner. We need to keep as many people working as possible. Tom, I completely agree. I know a lot of my friends in the construction industry. We have regular safety briefings. I know at my company, and I know Richmond America does so. DR Horton does so. A lot of local builders. I know a good friend of mine in Kitsap, Sterling, does that. It's just something that is naturally part of your business. And I imagine in manufacturing too, safety is a huge component to what you do.
It is. Well, some of our biggest customers are contractors and those out on construction sites. And this is affecting them. And if anyone who's been on a construction site can tell you, you're not shoulder to shoulder with guys in an assembly line. You're 20, 30 feet away working by yourself, often wearing a mask anyway. So it's a ridiculous ridiculous example of our governor's selective enforcement here. And I'm all for them getting back to work, just like you mentioned, most other states.
I mean, these are the cream of the crop that I know that we've worked with for 15 years, folks that have immigrated here legally from different parts of the world that have had the dream, the American dream, and they are here and they will work late hours as hard as they can because they have moved from socialism where they're told when they can work, how they can work, what they get paid when they work. And now they're here, just their mind is blown to think we're living in a place where you're considered non-essential and you can't work and yet your bills are due. It's pretty frightening for many of our friends. A short and sweet question is the title here. How can you ensure us in Washington State you will walk this talk? Matt?
What talk? The talk we're talking about right now?
The talk that you're talking to be the man that you say you're going to be.
Well, I think we're going to hold each other accountable, Josh, but look at our backgrounds, look at our records. I certainly know that yours speaks for itself. Mine does too, I hope, as a criminal prosecutor and as a father of 4 little kids, and as a business owner who cares deeply about cutting regulations and cutting taxes, and also about working for the president, a president who I admire, President George W. Bush. These are all things that should point you in the right direction as far as looking at how are we going to ensure that the past 20 years of our lives reflect the future 20 years.
Oh, that's beautifully said. Yeah, I mean, definitely when I say that we're going to do something, when I talk about traveling around the state, the 3 biggest issues I talk about are we need to address the homeless issue that's fueled by unaddressed mental health issues, as well as drug and alcohol addiction. I talk about making sure that we have open and transparent government because we have out of control spending. In the last legislative session, we saw a 17% increase at midnight and $2.7 billion of new taxes that was passed without any public input. And we could see how irresponsible that was. When we're in a rising economy, we should be cutting taxes and putting money away toward the emergency rainy day fund. And yet Jay Inslee is suggesting to spend $319 million from that rainy day fund to build 2,100 beds for the homeless. I can tell you, right now, we are in a crisis, and Jay Inslee and the legislative majority did not plan for this. They didn't even plan for a slight dip in the economy. And the third biggest thing I focus on is making sure that we will never have an income tax. We have plenty of money in Olympia, but just the wrong priority. So I would veto any attempt on an income tax.
Sure,
I'll keep my word because, I mean, I'm responsible definitely to the voters of Washington State, but to me, I know I'm personally responsible to a higher authority in God. That if I say my word is my word, that is what I stick to.
Mm-hmm. And I would echo that as a Christian. That's my worldview as well. Yeah. And we're going to answer to a higher authority at some point. And frankly, these are common sense things, right?
Yeah.
It wouldn't be hard to not raise taxes because we both believe that that's the wrong thing to do. We're not going to raise taxes. Guess what? I mean, we're not going to come after your guns because it's the wrong thing to do.
Yeah.
It's easy to not do stuff when it's the right action, if that makes sense.
Well, when you have clarity of mind and your motivations are pure, that's definitely true. When you had me on a thought, rather than government have more money, we need to make sure that individuals have more money. Because you think about a lot of people are in crisis right now in this pandemic, and they want to be able to apply for unemployment because that's where Jay Inslee said they need to go, is just let the employers fire them rather than give some relief to those small businesses so they can retain employees. So now people are applying for unemployment. Those could take weeks to get those checks. And then the $1,200 checks we're waiting for from the federal government, who knows how long that could be. The crisis is today. So if people keep more of their money and it goes less to government, we can more quickly respond to times of crisis like we are.
Isn't that a crazy thought that you actually know how to spend your money better than the government?
Folks, this is Matt Larkin running for Attorney General. That's right, the man of wisdom. So Dave McMullen has a question. Joshua, talk about your 5-point plan for reviving the economy. The legislature makes the tax laws. How will you work to lower taxes? Yeah, with the legislature. So, hey, Dave, thank you so much. And I appreciate your thoughts on that. So the 5-point plan, we're talking about making sure that there's a sales or a B&O tax holiday for 3 months following the removal of our containment period, because a lot of businesses are facing what is called a business and occupation tax, which is a gross tax on goods that are sold. So if a bottle of water is sold for $1, but it costs you $1.25 and you're losing money, you still have to pay the state government. So especially right now, when we're in flex, we need some relief given to small businesses. We need an immediate relief for property taxes. We need to see those stayed until October for the state portion of it. I know some counties throughout the state are giving like I think King County is saying you can pay the county portion until June, but Benton County in the Tri-Cities area is saying it's still due in April. So we need some relief from the top down, certainly. I think about how we definitely need some relief when it comes to bridge grants that could be provided. So these would be able to be paid to small businesses that then directly are used for salaries for individuals. And then I also think about how we need a sales tax holiday for 1 month for retail and restaurants following the release or the removal of the containment period. I want to see people flooding back into small businesses, spending their money with a 10% discount immediately. We need relief. And one great idea that Dave McMullen gave, well, he's given many, but a great idea I really loved that he told me was, what about a tax credit? So any business that is considered non-essential and prevented from working right now, if they're continuing to pay salaries to employees, they should get a tax credit, because otherwise they could just let those folks go. But a lot of those business owners really have compassion for their employees. They become family members and they don't want to put them in a higher state of anxiety. So Dave's idea was, hey, let's give them a tax credit toward those salaries that they paid during this period of time. All right, so will we be spending more time in Eastern Washington? There are not many candidates that care about this area, even if you are from here. I know for me personally, and Matt, you can jump in. I've spent a lot of time in Eastern Washington over the last 4 months. We've done a few different tours over there. We're going to be doing another one in about 3 weeks, or I guess no, now it's in 5 weeks. We've altered that timing. But we're going to go to all 39 counties. I've already spent a lot of time in Spokane and Pullman, Wenatchee, Quincy, Davenport, Omak, boy, a lot of different places, and Yakima, Tri-Cities. We're making sure that we're reaching to all 4 corners of the state, because I know how important it is that we have a governor that spends more time in Yakima than in Iowa. But I know that you've also been touring around the state as well.
I have. I've been out and about, and one of the most depressing things about being a candidate for the last month or so is that we're stuck. I would love to get out and about. I know you and I both attended the Okanagan Lincoln Day dinner. Yep. That was one thing we were able to do. But I had a full slate of events in Spokane and in Yakima that had to be canceled or postponed. And it's been really tough. And I regret it. I had to call every single person on that list who was going to be there. And I talked to them. I wanted to hear what they were concerned about. I wanted to hear their issues. I probably connected with 2/3 of them and had long, good conversations. But it's not the same as being in front of them and shaking their hand and talking real issues over coffee. So I regret that. But once this ban is lifted, if it's lifted, I plan to get my running shoes on and get back out to the east side of the state, because it's important. You're right.
I'll drive you. You don't need to run.
No, I do need to run.
Oh, you do. Great question for you here. Matt, will you focus on making sure we are protecting the people of Washington State instead of worrying about Washington, D.C.?
Great question. In fact, that's one of my favorite talking points against Mr. Bob Ferguson is, look, we got an attorney general now who's focused on the wrong Washington, period. He's out looking and suing President Trump 58 times, and his back is turned to this Washington, and it's burning down behind him. As you kind of mentioned earlier, crime all-time high. Homelessness, all-time high. The last 7 years under the Inslee Ferguson regime, and that's not okay. We need an AG who is helping the Washington that elected him to serve, and that's not happening right now. So yes, my focus will not be on suing the federal government. It will be very minimally involved with the federal government at all. I want to focus and help this Washington. So we've got a lot of crisis issues on our plate right now. And I could care less about suing the US Navy or suing the White House.
I like that, man. I really do. So Gigi Talcott is asking from Juan. Oh, Ron is watching with Gigi. Matt and Joshua, you're both successful job providers. Please tell us something of your business experience that will be valuable in your statewide government service.
Hmm.
For me, in land development, it's constantly, every day is a problem solving day. So when I started on Bothell City Council, I served on Bothell City Council for 12 years. That started about 14, 15 years ago. And I've been running my land development business for 15 years as well. So when I first started, it was like learning from a fire hose how to understand the code that I was having to adhere to, but then I was on city council writing the code at the same time. So a good friend of mine, when I initially started, was Noel Higa, and he says, "Josh, you have to know the code better than those who are adhering the code to you." And so I got very familiar with the Snohomish County Code, the Sultan Code. Right now, we're in different areas, whether it's King County, Snohomish County, Kitsap County. But you're always having to work with bureaucrats who are supposed to be there helping you through the process. And so it's learning how to collaboratively work with those government employees and still be able to move a private project through. So it's a public-private relationship and really understanding the importance of that. Another person gave me some great advice. He said, don't go into these jurisdictions demanding and fighting for your own vision. Try to work under the vision that the community has put forward. Because oftentimes a panel has come together of citizens. I know in the city of Bothell, I was mayor there for a period of time. We had the largest revitalization of a downtown in Washington State. And we pulled in 50 different stakeholders to come up with a vision for downtown. So we got community buy-in. It would have been wrong for any of those investors who brought $450 million in to say, no, we're just going to build what we want to build here. They came in with the mentality as we want to be part of what you're doing in community. So my help as governor would be really bridging the gap between public and private, which is why one of the ideas I want to have a public-private partnership to really address the homeless population and the drug culture that's going on today. But what about you with your business experience?
Well, one of the biggest things is just having the experience of running and managing and owning a business, right? Our opponents haven't done any of those things. Bob Ferguson has never held a regular job or had to make payroll or sit down with HR and talk through legal issues about the employees that he cares about. No, he's been a public servant his whole life, and Inslee is double that. Inslee has been running for office since he was in diapers, I feel like. And they've never been accountable to shareholders. They've never been accountable to their own wallets as having a stake in a business like that. It's easy to spend other people's money, but you're a lot more careful when it's yours. And that accountability and just learning the ins and outs of employing people and their issues and their problems and how to help them. Those are all things that fall under the banner of owning and running a business. So I think you and I both bring that experience to it, Josh, as business owners. And I'd love to corner Bob Ferguson and talk business with him because you wouldn't have a lot to say.
Yeah, for sure. So Matt, I'm going to take just 1 second here because I see that there's still folks on, but there's no video. I don't know if we're seeing any video at all. So hopefully things are still continuing and people can still see us. But we did get cut off, folks, right at the beginning of this live stream. We were ticking right along and then it just died. So hopefully my technology on my computer is the only thing that's failing and not everyone else's stream. So, all right. So here's another question. What concerns do you have about students falling behind that aren't doing online school? That's a good question. You want to take it?
No, yeah, I can speak to it from a father perspective. It's concerning. I think it's a challenge, though. My heart goes out to every single parent out there who has to educate their own kids now. It's tough. It
Yeah.
really is. My wife will go 2 hours on with one and and then without taking a break for herself, she switches and teaches my other oldest one, my second oldest, for 2 hours, and does that all throughout the day. And she gets done around 8 o'clock at night. We take school through dinner sometimes, and it's just the volume that's coming at them. So I don't know if my kids are falling behind or not. My heart goes out to those that are. And I just hope that we can get back to normal as soon as possible, because there are wonderful teachers out there who love helping and teaching our kids. And we need to get them back out there so they can do what they were born to do.
Oh man, well, that's a great answer. I totally see eye to eye with you for sure. A lot of parents are feeling the pressures of working, not working, making the bills move forward or get paid, and at the same time trying to consider their students that they're having to pay to make sure that they're not left behind,
Yeah.
further behind right now. So Lee Bullender, would you consider a complete rehab of our present construction permitting process? Shorten the time frame and putting more burden to comply upon the contractor. Build it to code. If you don't, then we spend more time and our penalties to the contractor. So I work in many different jurisdictions over the last 15 years, Lee, and everyone has their own permitting processes that they run through. So that's something to consider. I know in the city of Bothell, we try to streamline the permitting process. In the city of Seattle, it took me one time 2 years to get a 5-unit permit or 5-unit townhome permit through. And typical jurisdictions like Kitsap County, Snohomish County, you'll be able to get a 5-unit townhouse permit through in 3 months. So when you have a housing crisis that's going on right now, when you have bureaucracy not moving things as quickly through as they can, that's a serious problem. So when I was in the city of Bothell, we passed a code that allowed for people to pay an expedited fee. So we had our employees in the city of Bothell, and rather than hire new engineers to do more review, we just allowed for this fee to be paid to go to an outside engineer to review under Bothell City Code. And it was an expedited code. So it moved further, it was quicker. The developers and builders were more than willing to pay that expedited fee. So I'd love to see a lot more of that innovative type idea going throughout the jurisdictions throughout the state. But Matt, I don't know if you want to jump in on that, or we'll jump to another question.
Add quick that I think regulations are out of control. I love what the current administration is doing on slashing the regulatory state. And that's encouraging to me. And we need to see that at a statewide level here too.
Oh yeah, we have a 6 feet tall of regulations, like 15,000 pages right now, or thousands upon thousands of pages, 6 feet tall, but they never sunset. And it's written all be these department heads, whether it's L&I, Department of Labor, whatever it might be, all these different departments. I want to sunset those regulations every 5 years, so they have to come back to the legislature, and a panel at the legislature says, all right, was this requirement regulation positive? Should we keep it and renew it? Should we just cast it away? Or are there some amendments and changes we can make to it? That's the right thing to do. I think about Trump. He said he was going to get rid of 2 regulations for everyone. He's gotten rid of, I think, 20 for everyone that he's implemented.
Yep.
All right, so we got about 6 minutes left, folks. Maybe we'll take a couple more questions, and then we do have a raffle that we're going to give away for a gift certificate. So the unemployment numbers that just came in are scary. Our governor refuses to acknowledge the private sector and is looking for big government solutions. How would you be any different? Boy, the unemployment number, Matt, I don't know if you saw it yesterday, was 180,000 people in Washington state alone.
Wow, isn't that crazy?
I mean, you can hear some of these employment numbers that were happening under Trump for the last 3 years. I mean, we would get 180 in a week nationwide of new jobs that are created. And to think in Washington alone, that many jobs have been hit. It's real tough. So that definitely needs to be changed. It's heartbreaking. And I want to see us get through this COVID crisis quicker than possible. I think a lot more people could go back to work that are currently being allowed to go back to work. He's right now choosing who the winners and losers are and who's essential and non-essential. I think what really needs to be the focus is making sure that work environments are safe. Been to a grocery store lately, Matt?
I unfortunately have. Yeah.
I mean, walk in there at the front and there are no hand sanitizers, even. Oh. No, so we're going to the place, the one place where all the hundreds of thousands of us are going, there's no sanitary requirements at all. You have to go find a hand sanitizer at some cash register. We should have bolted down at the floors. Everybody walk in, some automatic little hand sanitizer.
You can't, some of these aisles, you can't get 6 feet away from people, as if that was enough anyway. But, and then people are going through apples and picking them. And I'm thinking, my
Oh,
goodness.
my goodness. Yeah, in my own company, right? We're in an office environment. When you walk in either door, we have an automatic hand sanitizer. You can go stick your hand down, it gets the stuff, and you can clean it off. Then we have cubicles where everyone's working 6 feet apart. Then I think about out in the fields, man, we have, of course, there's safety rails. That's not what I'm talking about. But folks understand how to work from a distance and keep themselves safe. If we can set those parameters, we need a plan to get people back at work so people can provide for themselves, not just be dependent on the government. And then make sure that we are providing safety for those folks that are super vulnerable, 60, 70, 80-year-old folks, making sure that they're not going to work, but we're able to help provide for them during this period of time. But all right, so if you were governor during the COVID-19 pandemic, who would you turn to for wisdom and direction on how to deal with it? For me, it's definitely medical professionals. And what a big disappointment for me is Jay Inslee was having a lot of his press conferences in King County, and who was by his side? His side was Dr. Dushin. And Dr. Dushin is the guy who had the idea to open government-run heroin injection sites. It causes me great concern that that is the medical professional that he had next to him, the guy who is responsible for the most ridiculous, irresponsible approach to address the drug culture in Washington was truly to enable drug users under government supervision, where they give you the tourniquet, the needles, the syringe, the pan to cook the heroin in, even the matches, Matt.
I didn't know that. Matches were provided. That's comforting.
Yeah, yeah. All right. So maybe one more question before we end up for you, Matt. What are your children doing for fun during the COVID crisis? There you go. Softball for you.
Not school, I'll tell you that. There's a lot of wrestling going on. There's been a lot of tumbles off of the couch onto the couch. We've gone out in the yard, and I've played tag till I can't even run another foot because I'm out of shape. But we're just trying to stay busy. I'm teaching a Monopoly in the next day or two. That's on my agenda. It's never too early to learn about supply side economics.
Wow.
And
yeah.
Some conservative principles in them at an early age. But great question. And we're normal like any other family. We're just trying to pass time and survive indoors and not kill each other at the end of the day.
Man, well, I'm looking forward to getting a haircut and forward. But I don't know where Jay Inslee's getting his haircut. I think a lot of people are wondering this. Where is he getting his haircut? Because Bob Ferguson looks like a fuzzy chia pet right now. And I don't know, Jay Inslee, I don't know if he's practicing that social distancing like he's telling us all we have to. I mean, this really turned negative when 3 days ago, we were all under this voluntary rule, really respecting the social distancing, making sure we're staying home. But when he said, pick up the phone and start reporting people, and we're going to take away people's business licenses, I mean, this is a whole dark area we're going to. We don't need that type of motivation to do the right thing. Really. All right, so we're going to do a drawing. Sorry, Mac. But
real quick, Josh, before we end this on that topic, just for a second. One thing we did do yesterday that I should tell people is my grandmother is 93 and she's locked in her nursing home apartment. Someone in her facility had it. She can't get out literally she's been in there 7 days already. And I think there's no end in sight. So we drove over there last night and all my kids made signs and they brought their little karaoke machine and they got out of the car and we called her and said, come to your window. And
no.
And they sang and held up their signs. And we got some great video I'll put up on my Facebook site about it. But we're trying to pass time too by teaching them to help others.
Man, you're a good man. I'm telling you, I love that heart. You can just see your heart through it. So let's do a little drawing here. So last week we drew a name to win a gift card to the Grazie Italian restaurant in Bothell. Our amazing supporter, Ben Sturchek and Leah, donated the gift to someone else that was in need. The individual happens to be a single mom of 3 children that is a nurse. How cool is that? So we feel so fortunate to be able to give that to her. And thank you for Ben and Leah, who were generous to give away the gift card, $125 gift card to Grazie. So Are we having two drawings today? Oh, cool, two drawings. So first is a $50 gift card to Irene's Tie in Woodinville. So we have an amazing campaign staff. I just want you to know that there's 6 of us dedicated full-time working right now, making sure that we have success. We have amazing regional directors and folks that are working on the campaign. But one employee, or not employee, one team member, particularly on Team Freed, loves Irene, and she's gotten us all addicted. So we're going to draw the first name. So here we go. Sorry, Matt. You care to draw?
Here we go.
Yeah. Oh, there you go. And it is Sonia Bonan. You've won a $50 gift card to Irene's Tie. We'll get that to you.
Irene's is good. It's a local place where I live in Woodinville. It'll be
Yeah, that's right. So I go there and I get a veggie curry 5-star with sticky rice. Oh, I love it hot. Remember, I was raised in the Middle East and traveled Southeast Asia most of my life. All right. Second gift card, another one from your neighborhood, my friend. This is in honor of Matt Larkin today, Woodinville Pizza Coop.
Oh, they're a good family. We like the Pizza Coop family. We go there quite
cool.
a bit.
So a $50 gift card.
They go to our church.
So here we go. Because we had about 80 people, or not 80 people, about 100 people circling in and out, we're doing 2 drawings today. So Anna Mason, we're going to get you a $50 gift card to the Pizza Coop in Woodinville. Wow. All right. You got that name? Sorry. Matt, what an honor. I have a lot of fun with you today.
I did too. It was great. Thanks for having me on, Josh.
Like a rapid round. Well, I know we're praying for the folks throughout Washington and throughout America and around the world for this COVID crisis to pass and that we can see ourselves through. I know that we will.
Mm-hmm. Well, we're praying too from our end, and just stay strong, everybody, and stay healthy. Thanks for having me here.
See you around. Thanks, brother.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, everybody, for coming on.